In this episode of the weekly Shonen Jump rankings, we'll be discussing Sanji vs. Queen, PPP's ultimate performance, and more new series in the magazine trying to make themselves contenders for best chapter of the week. And for this episode, there was no new chapter of Chojin X, and there was also no new chapter of Black Clover. That's the first time in these rankings that Black Clover hasn't released a weekly chapter, but I think it's good that Tabata can be able to take a break here and there. So let's jump right into the rankings, and at number 6, we have Ayashimon. Ayashimon did a lot of really cool things in this chapter. One is building up the world building and the magic system. I really think the idea that money is what is fueling the Yakuza is really cool, and that it fuels the gangs in real life, but also fuels them through their magic abilities. So I thought that was really cool, and it was only brought up in the beginning of this chapter and then just not really talked about after that. And so I hope it delves into that even more in the future, because I really thought that was one of the better parts of this chapter. And in addition to that, just another little aspect of the world building, I liked the duel setup, where that you can have a duel and everyone in the Yakuza will respect what's going on with the duel. So if you lose, you have to do what the stakes were set at, and if you win, you get what you bet. And so I think that is a really cool world building aspect to it. But overall, this chapter, again, I still think a lot of the panels are really cluttered here. There's some good banter, but some of the conversations are just needlessly bogged down by just a lot of exposition, and the artwork here is so good, and I wish it would just flex its muscles with its artwork and do a lot more showing instead of just telling us what's going on. The first half of this chapter was kind of difficult to get through because there were just so much dialogue about things that didn't need to be over explained as they were, so that is why it comes in at the number 6 ranking. I just thought it was a little bit unreadable, and that's been a common theme for Ayashimon through its first 4 chapters. There's a lot of really good stuff here, but overall, the paneling getting bogged down by so many text bubbles is what's held it back from really making it into the top 3 so far in its first month of running. Then at number 5, we have Dororoon, and that's the other new series, and its second chapter I thought was a lot better than its first chapter. Its first chapter felt very standard in a lot of ways, and some of the paneling I think left a little bit to be desired, especially for it being a chapter 1. There was a lot to like here. I liked the small battle between them saving the samurai. I thought it was good, and it's making for an interesting conflict in the future. I like how Dora wants to be a samurai, but now is probably going to be in conflict with them, or at least a handful of them, especially what is probably going to be the higher ups, because he accepts one of the creatures. So I think that's going to play out really well in the future, but still, this series is running really early, and it's hard to compete with these other series that have so many more chapters and are really deep into their plots. And between these 2 new series that are coming out, I think there's a lot of hype around them, and I think they can go in great directions, but the paneling is one thing that I want to see done better. It just feels like there's so much text going on, and obviously that's not always a bad thing. There's places where it can be really good, but they're great artists, and I want them to flex and show some great paneling and use a more variety, especially for Ayashimon. In the future of these new series, I think just getting into more situations that are interesting will be really important for them, and I expect them soon to have even better chapters. At number 4, we have Blue Box, and the highlight of this chapter was no doubt Hina and Taiki talking, and Hina telling Taiki how uncool he's been. One of the more interesting decisions that Blue Box has gone with is slowing down the relationship between Taiki and Shinatsu, and I think that has been a little bit hit and miss, because that's by far the most interesting part of this series so far. It's the reason I fell in love with this series, and so I hope that it starts to get back to their central relationship a little bit more after kind of taking a handful of chapters off, and Hina really taking that step where she really should have said, hey Taiki, I want to go to this festival with you, her saying how uncool he's been, and understanding that she is not the person that Taiki likes, I thought worked really well, and that was definitely the best part about this chapter. Gets me excited about future chapters as well, getting back to the central conflict at the heart of this series, because that's when Blue Box is at its best. And really, there was a lot of good conversations throughout this chapter that I really liked, but again, without it focusing and moving forward the central relationship, I think Blue Box is definitely in that kind of middle tier right now. It's at its best when it's really focusing on Taiki and Shinatsu, and that hasn't happened the last few chapters, so it comes in at number 4. Then at number 3, we have One Piece with the big battle between Sanji and Queen. This battle is awesome. It's coming off of the hype between King and Zoro, and here just continued how good it was. I love how connected Queen is through the science of Germa and how that makes an interesting relationship between him and Sanji. Oftentimes, the side battles for Sanji, Robin, Zoro, Nami, all of these characters can be a little bit hit or miss throughout the series, and this is one that I'm pretty fond of, actually. I really enjoyed this chapter. It wasn't the greatest side character fight we've seen, but it was very, very good, and that's why it comes in at number 3 this week. And at number 2, we have Kaiju number 8. Comparing it to series like Ayashimon and Dororoon, you can see how well the paneling is done in Kaiju 8. It is just a pleasure reading through this series. The paneling is so focused and simple that it makes it... I finished this chapter so fast and just wanted to reread it again because it was just so enjoyable to read. And the climax of this fight was absolutely incredible, and it left off with one of the best cliffhangers of the week, and the Chief's burst at the end really paid off the last few chapters, and where we've seen his backstory and what he'll do for his daughter, and so it's been really cool to see that happen, and that he probably is going to have given his life in showing how humans can stand up to the Kaiju. This chapter was fantastic. Kaiju 8 has been on an incredible run as of late. And then at number 1, our first back-to-back winner of Chapter of the Week is PPPPP. This series, when I first started, really struggled. It was consistently in the bottom half, and I really had to wonder if the series was going to get back to those first few chapters where it captured the magic of playing piano. And this chapter was the best chapter in PPP so far. It was incredible. I have been waiting and waiting and waiting for Lucky to get back to playing the piano, and we saw it here, and it was so satisfying on multiple levels. One, just seeing Lucky perform for multiple people and having them think it's incredible is really satisfying, but also him showing his sibling Reigero and paying off that Reigero has consistently had a difficult relationship with just regular people and is missing out on what Lucky has was really satisfying and incredibly emotional to read. I think the series does a fantastic job at capturing the beauty of music and how music can teleport you into entirely different situations, and how nostalgia is a huge part of music. And just right now, we're getting like the end of the year Spotify playlist of what people have listened to throughout the most this year, and it's always fun to go back and look at those lists of music, right, that for years past, and get like a hit of nostalgia. And I think we're all going through that right now, and PPP perfectly captured that nostalgic feeling within its manga, and it was just incredible. This series, if it continues to do this, it's gonna be one of the better series in Shonen Jump and one of the more unique series. I just love how well it represents what music can be, and it does it in an art form that doesn't have music. It's just astonishing, and the series really hit a low point a few chapters ago, and for it to bounce back these last 2 weeks with some incredible payoffs and some incredible panels and finally getting to a performance was awesome. And so it definitely gets my top spot for this week. PPP the last 2 weeks on a tear in my first series to get 2 number 1 spots in a row. And now let's move into the awards for the week. And for the best cliffhanger, I have to give it to Kaiju number 8. Knowing if the chief survived or not is definitely the most interesting ending to any chapter this week. And that also goes hand in hand with my best panel, because my best panel of the week is here. The composition is beautiful, and tying it in with the story beat and the confusion of whether he survived or not was just epic. And if this is the last moment that the chief's alive, it will be a fitting end for a fantastic character who really hasn't even been in the story that much. And then my most anticipated chapter is One Piece. For One Piece, we've been in the side fights for a while, and finishing up Sanji's fight and finishing up Zoro's fight is really satisfying, and I feel that we're getting so much closer to the big battle between Luffy and Kaido, and when that really gets down and starts, it's gonna be just so much hype and just banger after banger of a chapter. So I definitely am most excited to read One Piece next week to see how much closer we car to that big battle. But really, I think all of these chapters are pretty good. There hasn't been any chapters that I've just really not liked. Ayashimon just struggled a lot with the paneling this week, and it's nice to start off the next month of chapters. And our winner of last month, which was Chojin X, didn't even have a chapter this week, so it was really cool to see PPP getting 2 weeks in a row is just wild. So I hope you guys are enjoying this video and this series. I'm having a lot of fun talking about these series and making sure that I'm keeping up with these weekly series or semi-weekly series as they're coming out. So let me know, what was your favorite chapter of the week? What do you think about the 2 new series? Do you think they need to improve on anything? You know, I think they really struggle in comparison so far to some of these more established series, but maybe that's just inevitable. You know, as we do this more, I don't know if there'll be a lot of series that come in right away and get top 3 chapters, if they're kind of, you know, all hanging out around the bottom. And still working through Sakamoto Days, really enjoying it so far, and Undead Unlock I think are the next 2 that I'll be catching up to, so definitely look forward to that. And again, if there's another series you want me to catch up to that's new, or, you know, has a handful of chapters that you think I can read pretty quickly, let me know. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this series keeps growing, and I'm having fun doing it. It's really fun to kind of figure out the statistics of it as well. And so thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you next week for our weekly Shonen Jump rankings.